人工智慧其实早就出现在机器人，或是我们的很多人家里头买的，像吸尘器啊，那种家用的吸尘器是无电线的，然后自己跑，它本来就是属于 robot， 是属于机器人工智慧的一个部分。我们在礼拜六的时候报道说，美国其实非常恐惧一个叫振华重工，它的整个机器人里头手臂呢，在码头里头作业，它也是人工智慧的一种。人工智慧已经被广泛的用到一些家用的家电。或者是它用在一些机器人里头，包括 Tesla 的整个所有的工厂都是使用人工智慧的。可是这次呢 ，ChatGPT 呢正式启动了，它有一个非常大的一个功能，就是它对人力的一个取代，而它是一个很重要的一个软体。但 ChatGPT 只是人工智慧的一个开始，当它走向软体而不是在硬体里头，其实对很多人来说，它当然就是属于 job， 就是你的工作职缺的问题。刚才我们前面特别提到，其实那样的一个工作呢，本身人工智慧，你不要觉得现在还没有开始，你可能将会被淘汰。现在是你投入这个领域学习的非常重要的一个时间点。你甚至在很多 open source 里头，在一些重要的开放式课程里头就可以学到，不用去找谁来教你。因为包括像哈佛、像 MIT 等等，特别是麻省理工学院，它开了非常多的 open source 让你去学习。Stanford 也是。而最近呢，我们看一家公司的状况，就是 Meta， 就是以前我们所说的 Facebook 的母公司。Facebook 的母公司 Meta 呢，最近在宣布另外一波的一个裁员，而规模等同于去年。它裁掉的第一个就是非工程部门，因为很多部门呢，像服务各种不同的部门或者广告投入部门，它可以用 ChatGPT 来取代。第二个，它很多部分的项目他觉得不可行了，像穿戴装置，他就把它停掉了。那有一些团队他觉得太多了，硬体的团队他觉得太多了，他开始裁员。他人力遭到裁员的，包括硬体跟元宇宙的部门都遭到了裁员，那其他的都是非属于科技工程的部门就被裁掉，这是 ChatGPT 最容易在科技公司里头取代的部分。而我们刚刚提到，就是它也引发了在矽谷里头到底是 Alphabet 赢还是 Microsoft 赢，这引发了这个竞争。在全球里头，美国排第一，中国排第二。中国是由百度版的 ChatGPT 呢这样发布倒数计时，研发团队争分夺秒的想要完善它的商品。到时候百度如果可以出来，也的确是成功，而不是像有些最近美国有些公司虽然是很大的公司匆匆推出，结果就是失败的。那如果它成功了就是成功，失败了就是失败。接着再来看一下整个 Google 内部的指令，已经要求各个单位将 ChatGPT 呢这种生成式的人工智慧整合到所有的产品里头，而人工智慧也推动了很多广告增长。人们认为 Meta 的股票未来还会大增，接近27%左右，这是未来的一个趋势。而 CNBC 特别报道有一家是最受惠于这次的 AI 的 ChatGPT 等等，其中一个就是辉达。那辉达为什么会获益？大家要来讨论，这是 CNBC 的报道。那特别为大家介绍，因为辉达的创办人他成为现在 AI 的巨人呢，他已经成立了30年。他是台湾的移民黄仁勋所成立的辉达。我们来介绍这家公司，以及我们来看 CNBC 访问他怎么样谈他如何创立这家公司，他整个工厂的内部的状况，以及他谈到他如何面对人工智慧，他如何成为这一波受益最多的被 CNBC 所挑出来的公司。
This is what hundreds of millions of gamers in the world plays on. It's a GeForce.
For nearly 30 years, NVIDIA's chips have been coveted by gamers, shaping what's possible in graphics and dominating the entire market since it first popularized the term graphics processing unit with the GeForce 256. Now one of the world's top 10 most valuable companies, NVIDIA is one of the rare Silicon Valley giants that 30 years in still has its founder at the helm.
I delivered the first one of these inside an AI supercomputer to OpenAI when it was first created.
60-year-old Jensen Huang, a Fortune Business Person of the Year and one of Time's most influential people in 2021, immigrated to the U.S. from Taiwan as a kid and studied engineering at Oregon State and Stanford. In the early 90s, Huang met fellow engineers Chris Malachowski and Curtis Priam at Denny's, where they talked about dreams of enabling PCs with 3D graphics, the kind made popular by movies like Jurassic Park at the time. The friends launched NVIDIA out of a condo in Fremont, California in 1993. The name was inspired by NV for next version and NVIDIA, the Latin word for envy. They hoped to speed up computing so much everyone would be green with envy. At more than 80% of revenue, its primary business remains GPUs. Typically sold as cards that plug into a PC's motherboard, they accelerate, add computing power, to central processing units.
They were one among tens of GPU makers at that time. They are the only ones, and them and AMD actually, who really survived
Now, its chips are powering something entirely different.
ChatGPT has started a very intense conversation.
He thinks it's the most revolutionary thing since the iPhone.
Venture capital interest in AI startups has skyrocketed.
Despite some setbacks, today NVIDIA has 26,000 employees, a newly built Polygon-themed headquarters in Santa Clara, California, and billions of chips used for far more than just graphics. Think data centers, cloud computing, and most prominently, AI. As the engine behind large language models like ChatGPT, NVIDIA is finally reaping rewards for its investment in AI, even as other chip giants suffer in the shadow of US-China trade tensions and an ease in the chip shortage that's weakened demand. Now there's too much supply, and the most recently reported quarterly gaming revenue was down 46% from the year before. But NVIDIA still beat expectations in its most recent earnings report thanks to the AI boom, as tech giants like Microsoft and Google fill their data centers with thousands of NVIDIA A100s, the engines used to train large language models like ChatGPT.
When we ship them, we don't ship them in packs of 1, we ship them in packs of 8.
With a suggested price of nearly $200,000, NVIDIA's DGX A100 server board has 8 Ampere GPUs that work together to enable things like the insanely fast and uncannily human-like responses of ChatGPT. More than a decade ago, NVIDIA's CUDA and GPUs were the engine behind AlexNet, what many consider AI's Big Bang moment. It was a new, incredibly accurate neural network that obliterated the competition during a prominent image recognition contest in 2012. Turns out the same parallel processing needed to create lifelike graphics is also ideal for deep learning, where a computer learns by itself rather than relying on a programmer's code.
We saw early on, about a decade or so ago, that this way of doing software could change everything. And we changed the company from the bottom all the way to the top and sideways. Every chip that we made was focused on artificial intelligence.
So what are some real-world applications for NVIDIA's AI? Healthcare is one big area. Think far faster drug discovery and DNA sequencing that takes hours instead of weeks. And when crypto started to boom, NVIDIA's GPUs became the coveted tool for mining the digital currency. As it largely comes to a close and supply catches up with demand, some types of chips are experiencing a price slump. But for NVIDIA, the chatbot boom means demand for its AI chips continues to grow, at least for now. But being at the center of the generative AI boom doesn't make NVIDIA immune to wider market concerns. In October, the US introduced sweeping new rules that banned exports of leading-edge AI chips to China, including NVIDIA's A100. About a quarter of your revenue comes from mainland China. How do you calm investor fears over the new export controls?
Well, NVIDIA's technology is export controlled. It's a reflection of the importance of the technology that we make. The first thing that we have to do is comply with the regulations. And it was a turbulent, month or so as the company went upside down to re-engineer all of our products so that it's compliant with the regulation and yet still be able to serve the commercial customers that we have in China. We're able to serve our customers in China with the regulated parts and delightfully support them.
But perhaps an even bigger geopolitical risk for NVIDIA is its dependence on TSMC in Taiwan. But the California-based chip designer relies on Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company to make nearly all its chips, leaving it vulnerable.
The biggest risk is really kind of U.S.-China relations and the potential impact of TSMC. If I'm a shareholder in NVIDIA, that's really the only thing that keeps me up at night.
You're my hero.
Thank you.
NVIDIA today wouldn't be here nor the other 1,000 fabless semiconductor companies wouldn't be here if not for the pioneering work that TSMC did.
There's two issues. One, will China take over the island of Taiwan at some point? And two, is there a viable, competitor to TSMC? And as of right now, Intel is trying aggressively to get there. And, their goal is by 2025, and we will see. And this is not just an NVIDIA risk. This is a risk for AMD, for Qualcomm, even for Intel.
This is a big reason why the US passed the CHIPS Act last summer, which sets aside $52 billion to incentivize chip companies to manufacture on US soil. Now, TSMC is spending $40 billion to build 2 chip fabrication plants, fabs, in Arizona.
The fact of the matter is TSMC is a really important company, and the world doesn't have more than one of them.
The biggest question for them is how do they stay ahead? Because their customers can be their competitors also. Microsoft can try and design these things internally. Amazon and Google are already designing these things internally.
Tesla and Apple are designing their own custom chips too. But Jensen says competition is a net good.
The amount of power that the world needs in the data center will grow. And you can see in the recent trends, it's growing very quickly. And that's a real issue for the world.
NVIDIA is also trying to compete in a totally different arena, releasing its own data center's CPU, Grace. And NVIDIA GeForce GPUs in the cloud allow full-quality streaming of 1,500 plus games to nearly any PC. It's also part of what enables simulations, modeling of how objects would behave in real-world situations. Think climate forecasting, or autonomous drive tech that's informed by millions of miles of virtual roads. It's all part of what NVIDIA calls the Omniverse, what Huang points to as the company's next big bet.
We have 700 plus customers who are trying it now, from car industry to logistics warehouse to wind turbine plants. And so I'm really excited about the progress there. It represents probably the single greatest container of all of NVIDIA's technology: computer graphics, artificial intelligence, robotics, and physics simulation, all into one. I have great hopes for it.